All right, and we are live. I kind of made a mistake this time, and I forgot to make the announcement for this public, so it's going to take a few minutes for people to funnel in here. I don't expect as many people tonight, but we will see what happens. Let me know if anybody else logs in here. I'm going to kind of wait a few minutes to get going here and see what, there we go. All right, how you doing today, HVAC apprentice? So what I did was I forgot to, when I scheduled this event, I scheduled it about 3-4 days ago. I'm doing good, thank you. I scheduled it about 3 or 4 days ago, and I left it unlisted. Hey, guys. There we go. Everybody's funneling in now. All right. Cool. Looking good. I was a little worried because it said nobody was in there, so now we're starting to come in. I'm going to give it a few more minutes, guys, before we take off on this, so let a few more people funnel in before I talk about what I want to talk about. So hello to everybody that's joining right now. All right. Right on. Hello, everybody. Right on. We got people from all over the place. So where's everybody from right now? Looks like, does someone say they're in Brazil? Most of the people from in the US. I see we got some people in here from Canada. It's all good, Alex. No worries. All right, New Orleans, Las Vegas, Toronto, Myrtle Beach. Awesome. This is cool, guys. It is really cool to see people from all over the place watching this stuff. Right on. That's cool. Is it Edgar? Is that your name? You're from Brazil? I'm taking that. I think your name says Edgar. Right on. Ontario, Canada. Cool. Isaiah, I saw that you had a new video up. That's awesome. I haven't had a chance to watch it, but I will watch it definitely soon. So Sergio Montoya, you're in Southern California. Right on, dude. I'm in Riverside, California. So I'm a SoCal guy myself too. All right, cool. Right on. Well, thanks for coming in, Edgar. Okay, guys. So uploaded a review video for a Vito bag yesterday. Okay. And associated with that video is a giveaway. So if you guys haven't already watched the video, make sure you watch it and follow the instructions to enter the giveaway. And we'll get that stuff. Basically, I uploaded it last night. So I said 2 days of comments, and then I'll close the comments, and then we'll do a random comment picker and pick someone to win the Vito MB bag. That's the little, bag that they sent me to give away. So we will do that. So make sure that you guys enter that drawing and follow the instructions on what it says to do in the video. So we had 2 videos last week that I uploaded, or I should say 2 videos since the last time I did a live stream. I had a video on Friday and a video on Monday. I kind of wanted to go over the Friday video, which was the Glycol, the Chi-Rack Glycol unit. I got a lot of questions about that one. A lot of people didn't, I shouldn't say a lot of people, quite a few people commented that they didn't even know that they made a unit like that. So I just kind of want to go over that a little bit. Once I do that, then I can answer some of your guys' questions if you have any. So the Chi-Rack unit it's a refrigerator. Okay. So it has a bottom section and a top section. The top section they call the cold rail or the pan chiller. And this is the newer Chi-Rack units. This is a blue unit. Okay. So this unit uses glycol as the cooling medium. So what they're doing is they have a condensing unit that has an evaporator or a flat plate heat exchanger. Okay. And what that does is that contains the refrigerant, the R404A refrigerant in the condensing unit section. Okay. And then what they do on the other side of that flat plate heat exchanger, they're circulating glycol. And that glycol is being circulated by a little pump. And the pump is constantly 24/7, no matter if the unit has a call for cooling or not, is pumping that glycol through the cold rail up top and then down through the bottom evaporator and then back to the pump or back to the flat plate heat exchanger. And then obviously just revert, continuing the cycle over and over and over again. So the cabinet area where they keep the food, there's actually no refrigerant in the cabinet area. It's just glycol that's piped through standard copper lines, just like a normal reach-in. And it's going through what used to be our evaporator, but now is just another heat exchanger. Okay. And then same thing up top. It's a different type of heat exchanger up top, but essentially, you know, it's just absorbing the heat from all the product. Okay, it's really not too complicated if you understand what's going on. Okay, the one thing a lot of people see, you know, Chi-Rack is actually they're owned by a company called Illinois Toolworks, which is a conglomerate that owns a lot of different companies. They also own Traulsen. And you may notice, if you guys are familiar with the restaurant refrigerators, that on the Chi-Rack reach-ins, they share a lot of parts with the Traulsen units, and vice versa. Some of the Traulsen units adopted some of the Chi-Rack stuff. So they actually, on the newer boxes now, they use Traulsen's IntelliTraul controller that they used to use for their chef spaces or their drawer units. And they've integrated that into the Chi-Rack units. So you'll notice that on the new Chi-Rack Blue units, they use the same sensors as the Traulsen IntelliTrauls have on their freezers and their coolers. And they have a lot of the same relays and different things too. I imagine they did that to try to bring together a lot of the resources that they were buying. Traulsen already had a good thing going with it. Well, some would say a good thing going. Others that work on a lot of Traulsens know the flaws to that IntelliTraul controller, which is the sensors, which is funny because they put those same sensors on the Chi-Rack regions. But anyways, I digress. So, you know, we're, as I said, we're pumping that glycol through the heat exchanger down below and then through the heat exchanger in the cold rail. And by using the glycol, we're actually allowed to bring the temperatures, or it helps us to be able to bring the temperatures down a little bit cooler. And not have to worry about freezing up an evaporator coil, essentially, okay? Because we're pumping that glycol through there. And, you know, they run it, I think it's right around 26, 27 degrees is the glycol temperature, if I remember right. Don't quote me on that. But it just constantly maintains that temperature. So if you can picture it, again, I'm going to recap. The condensing unit is the only place where there's refrigerant, okay? The condensing unit, it pumps it right back behind the condensing unit. Above the condenser, there's a flat plate heat exchanger. And then that's where the glycol transfers the heat and then pumps into the box. Okay. So that's the whole cool thing about these Chi-Rack Blue units. Other than that, it's nothing else really fancy. It's just a control system, you know, a temperature controller that turns it on and off. And you guys saw in the video, if you haven't, check it out. But that box and several other boxes in this restaurant have kind of been butchered. So the previous company has kind of been doing some funky stuff on there, and they've been taking controls out and, you know, just kind of doing their own thing. I kind of showed a snapshot of another reach-in where the IntelliTraul controller, or the controller that runs the whole box, is completely taken out of it. And I don't even know what they've done to make that other one work, but it's pretty interesting. So yeah, I had gotten quite a few questions on that. So I just kind of wanted to recap over that and explain what was going on there. Nothing really too crazy on those. Okay. It's nothing to be intimidated by. Unit has a receiver and a sight glass and a TXV. Some of the parts are a little bit difficult to get to. I'd say one of the more common places that we have a refrigerant leak on that box is on the suction service valve coming back to the compressor. It tends to rust out and there's refrigerant leaks. And in fact, I'm changing one of those here on Wednesday this week. I'm going to be going to do another one, and I'll try to get some video of it where at that same restaurant where I have a leaking suction service valve on another one of the reach-ins, and then we're going to be changing some sensors and different things. So I'll try to shoot some video of that. So go over here and see if there's any questions in the chat yet. Yeah, Chi-Rack is they were a very, very, very popular reach-in for a long time, but they just went to the blue technology maybe 8 years ago. They started using it. They had a couple test sites that I was doing some warranty work for before they even released their blue system out to the public. They had a couple restaurants that they completely outfitted with their blue technology, and they actually have like a full chiller setup. I don't know if they're still doing it to this day, but they have out here, there's some restaurants. What was it called? Lucille's Barbecue or something like that. And they completely outfitted the entire restaurant, essentially with a giant rack on the roof that had giant barrels of glycol in it. And it was essentially just a giant chiller, and it was just pumping the glycol downstairs, and every refrigerator was remoted. And we were just pumping chilled glycol to all the walk-ins, to all the reach-in coolers, to the Traulsen reach-ins, to everything. And so there essentially was no refrigerant being ran downstairs it's been a long time since I've worked on those, so I don't know if they still have those systems in existence. I think they do, because I think I've heard that some people have them at cheesecake factories, but I don't do any work for them, so I don't know. So, but yeah, it's pretty interesting to see the way that that system was running, because at the time when I saw that, I'd never worked on a system like that. I'd never worked on a chiller or anything, so it was really interesting to see it being pumped like that. You know, they just essentially had multiple pumps. I think there was 2 or 3 pumps, and essentially, I think it only relied on 2 of them, and then there was a backup pump, so that way if any of them ever shut off, any of the 2 main pumps ever shut off, it would turn on the secondary pump. But anyways, I'm going off on a tangent there. So, but yeah, it was pretty interesting, and you know, they got pretty complicated with those glycol systems. So it was pretty complex, and there was a lot of controls involved and different things. And it was a little bit over my head when I was working on them years ago. So, but I like the little reach-in ones. They're pretty easy, pretty simple, nothing too fancy on them. So I imagine that's the way we're going to be going. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if we, in my opinion, if with this R290 mandate or the hydrocarbon refrigerants, I would not be the least bit surprised if they, and I know they did it a long time ago, if they start doing something with flammable or hydrocarbon refrigerants in a residential application for air conditioning. And then they start pumping glycol into the house instead of using refrigerant in the house to try to keep the refrigerants outside. That's just a theory of mine, but I kind of think that they might be going that way because they want to be doing all these natural refrigerants, and you know, they're afraid of pumping large amounts of natural refrigerants into the houses because, you know, most of them are flammable. You know, if you're using anything but CO2, essentially, they're flammable. So I really see that as being something that we might go to in the future, where, you know, we've got the refrigerant contained outside in a condensing unit, and then we cool glycol and pump glycol into the space, you know, and use that for cooling. But, you know, that's just my theory as to where things are going. So look on over here and see if we have any questions yet. Okay, cool. Yeah, so you are saying Cheesecake Factory is using a chiller pumping glycol. Yeah. I did a little bit of work on it, and I'll be honest with you, not at Cheesecake Factory. It was at that Lucille's, and I wasn't even working for the restaurant. I was working for Chi-Rack back in the day. Chi-Rack used to be located here in is it Anaheim or Fullerton? They used to be in Fullerton, California, and then before that, they used to be in Harbor City, California. But back then, this was 10 years ago, something like that, I was doing a lot of their warranty work out here, and so I got the chance to work on some of those glycol systems, and they were interesting. You know, the big ones. They were running the whole restaurant off of it. So, yeah, very interesting. Hey guys, coming in here, new guys. We were just kind of going over the last video for anybody new that's popping in right now. Yeah, Dawn, you know, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking because, you know, if we don't want to have the R290 or the butane or whatever, you know, flammable refrigerants inside the occupied residence, I have a feeling that they would increase the charge limitations, but not allow it into the space, and then just have it in a condensing unit on the side of the house and then be pumping glycol in. I really think that's where we're going with residential air conditioning eventually. You know, that opens up a whole bunch of other things and problems and whatnot, but I foresee that as alternative to pumping, you know, flammable refrigerants into the house. So, and potentially having a problem there. So, yeah, I do work with R290 refrigerant. So it's very interesting. I haven't worked with R32 yet, but R290, I mean, essentially it's just, there's not much different between the two. You know, they're both just another refrigerant. So it's all good, Superior. You're not missing anything. We were just kind of talking about the Chi-Rack video that I uploaded last week. So anybody in here have any questions on the Chi-Rack reach-in or anything before that, before I move on? I'm going to read through some of these. Okay, so CB, you're asking me, you said you were watching a previous video and I was replacing an evap and I mounted the thermostat on the bottom of the coil. Would this be mounted in the coldest spot of the evaporator for proper sensing? I kind of need some context. Did I embed the thermostat in the coil, or was it mounted below the coil? If I embedded it, it might have been a Delfield reach-in, and that's where they come from. The factory is embedded in the bottom. Yeah, that's just a Delfield reach-in. They come there. That's where the factory wants them. It's probably about the bottom third of the evaporators where they usually locate them, somewhere in there. But yeah, I didn't choose where to put that. That was just where it came from the factory. So not going to reinvent the wheel. I just kind of work with what they give me and follow their instructions. So, but okay. Have any of you guys worked with glycol units before, where it's using glycol as a cooling medium and it's just, you know, pumping it through a heat exchanger? Besides in like, you know, I'm talking about in refrigeration. Anybody else done anything with that stuff before? Yeah, Brian, you know, on those reach-ins, you do want to check your charge with the cold rail turned off. Yeah, that is correct. At least on the Dell fields. Yeah. Okay. It's really nothing too complex, guys. It's just you've got a little bit more to worry about with the glycol. Again, I'm not an expert with it, but the guys that deal in hydronics know a lot more about that stuff. But things that I don't think about is when you're refilling the glycol and then you get an airlock in the pump. That freaked me out the first time I saw that. You know, it took me a little while to burp the air out of the system, and you know, that was kind of a little scary thing. Yeah, the beer chillers, I work with them on those. You know, I've had airlock on the beer chillers too before. Scares me at first, thinking I did something wrong, but then just takes time to clear it out. I wish, you know, on those systems that they would put some kind of a bleed valve or something, but our stuff is really small, so they don't. So that's why we would get the problems when we would have air stuck inside there. So Trans Talentine, you said, how many food service techs do you have? The best way to find good people. How many techs do I have? I have 4 people, including myself. So I'm a very small company. So I've got 3 technicians that work for me, and I work, you know, full time too. So, yeah. How do I find good people? That's a hard thing, man. It's really hard to find good people right now. It's just really hard to find people in general, you know. There's a lot of young blood coming into the trade. Pardon my dog shaking in the background. Sorry, guys. I don't know if you can hear that. There's a lot of young blood coming into the trade, which is good, but it just means we have to train them all. So it's a little difficult. You know, sometimes I wish I could hire someone that has experience and they could hit the ground running. But, you know, it is what it is. So we learn to deal with it. So, Brian, yeah, I don't do any beverage systems. So like when I say that I'll repair the glycol unit, you know, the beverage company will call me out, the local companies here, because they don't work on refrigeration. But as far as running lines or changing glycol, cleaning glycol, I don't deal with that. I tell them to call the beverage company. So I'll just, you know, something as simple as changing a pump, I'll do that, or replacing the or repairing a refrigerant leak or changing a compressor, I'll do that. But it's kind of a gray area out here. Because we have a few beverage companies, but they don't do refrigeration, and then I don't do the beverage systems. You know, I don't mess with the CO2s and the nitrogen settings or anything like that. So, okay, cool. So then, you know, the next video that I uploaded was the video that dropped today. Some of you may not have watched it yet, but it was on a Linux package unit where we had a direct short. And that was an interesting one. I like those ones when they you know, relate to things that I've done training on lately. And this service call, actually, like I mentioned in the video, was a service call on a trouble signal from a duct detector or from a smoke detector. So the restaurant, for whatever reason, didn't even realize that they had an AC that was down. It was their kitchen AC. So I guess it's kind of cool out here, maybe. So I don't know. I was kind of blown away that they didn't realize their AC was down. Excuse me. But so they called me out saying that the alarm company had said that there was a trouble condition from the kitchen AC. When I arrived, what I found was that the main breaker was off, and the main breaker had tripped because, like I showed in the video, it had a bad condenser fan motor, and that's mainly what caused it to trip. So got the unit operational. But I thought that was cool because it was relatable to the duct detector stuff, you know, that I'd been talking to my guys about, and then showed you guys the video on. So that was cool. First time seeing me, you pictured me to be a younger kid. What am I, old? Is it Oscar? Is that your name? Do you expect me to be do you think I'm old? I'm only 35. Is that old? Superior. Yeah. So that was interesting. If you guys watched in the video, as I was panning out, walking away to go get the condenser fan motor, there was some people. I was at a shopping mall, and there was some people doing construction and installing other units. Oh, okay, I got you. I got you. Nope, not a kid. Some would consider me a kid, I guess, Oscar, but nope. So as I was walking away, I showed in the video the captive air Make-A-Bear unit that was being installed, and you could clearly see that the thing was sitting unlevel. Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. And Superior, I think it was you that asked me if I mentioned to the installers, but it actually wasn't. I was talking to some people up there, but they were just kids, and I think they were just grunts. I'll be honest with you, I don't think that they were using an HVAC company to do any of the installation work. From the looks of it, they were just using a general contractor. More than likely, that's setting that equipment and then going to call out Captive Air to do the startup and those people. So I really think that they're going to run into a problem, especially when they might get lucky depending on which side the drain comes out on that unit. You know, it may be that the drain is pitched. I really didn't look at it too much. So it may be pitched in the right direction, but still, that's not good. That unit looked like it was clearly sitting at a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch unlevel. So that was interesting. Oh, was it you, AK? Okay, sorry. I didn't know who, I couldn't remember who asked me that, or AK Van, I should say. I didn't know who had asked me that question. So right on. Hey guys that are just coming in. Thanks, Jeffrey. You know, I try to take a systematic approach to troubleshooting, so I appreciate you saying that. It was a good job. So, Kevin Ear, you asked me if I can tell you what a maintenance person does. It just depends. I mean, give me some context on that question, Kevin. I mean, what are you? Are you a technician? Are you a business owner? Give me context to that question, and I can answer it a little bit better, because that question is very broad, and I can go in a million different directions. So. Jeremy Calvin, do I do installs in my company or just service? We are a service company. We deal with commercial restaurant refrigeration. I do occasionally do installs, but I really don't do any new construction. I just do retrofits, you know, or change outs essentially. So if we've got a package unit that needs to be replaced, I'll change it. But if it's complex, then I'll get a contractor involved, a general contractor. So I don't do any new construction or cut-ins or anything like that. So. Okay. Kevin, technicians. As in maintenance, I'm still kind of confused on your question, but I'm going to go with it a little bit. So, you know, to me, a maintenance person would be someone that like for me, if I have one guy that does most of my preventative maintenances. So, you know, he's still learning, and he's doing a lot of preventative maintenances. And he's learning service as he's coming up. So, you know, I mean, that's kind of what I would consider a maintenance guy. But then there's also, you know, a lot of in-house techs will be considered maintenance guys. So they won't do any heavy refrigeration work. They'll just change filters and clean coils, and then they'll call in contractors to do other work. So I don't really know if I'm answering your questions right, Kevin, there, because again, I need some more context on what you're asking. So, hey, Fred. Cool. Right on. Yeah. Where do you live, Fred? How do I land all my restaurant accounts, Jose? That's an interesting one. So I deal with a lot of big chains. Most of them have been word of mouth. I really don't advertise. We've had a lot of customers for a very long time. And we have gotten new business from word of mouth. So essentially, if I have one restaurant chain and, you know, I've been working with them for a long time, then the general manager leaves and goes over to the next one. That's how we've gotten most of our customers, is just word of mouth. When one person went to another place, or when someone's friend asked them, who do you use for service? You know, we got recommendations from business acquaintances and stuff like that. So per se, I don't go knocking on people's doors. It just took time. And, you know, my dad started the company 30 something years ago, and we had, you know, a few customers from that. And then we still have some of the same customers, you know, so we tend to, you know, be pretty loyal to our customers, and our customers do the same to us, you know, and we make sure that we give them, you know, the attention that they need. And, you know, I feel like they appreciate that, and they either continue to use me and or recommend me to their other friends and different things. So we just get lucky, I should say. It's just one of those things. I would say if you're looking for new customers and you're a new business, That's going to be a hard one because there's a lot of competition out there right now. I honestly don't know if I could answer that question correctly because I've never had to really go out and bang on people's doors to find work. I've been very, very fortunate in that the work has found me for the most part. So via my reputation and different things. Oh, okay. Phoenix is a hard place, Jose, because Phoenix is saturated with refrigeration and air conditioning companies, I would imagine. I mean, I know they have tons of air conditioning ones. So um, I would imagine social media might be a good place. But when you're trying to deal with chains, for the most part, the restaurant managers themselves don't have a lot of say in contractors, and it's on a facilities level. It's corporate people that you got to get a hold of. So that's a difficult one. I do know that there's some companies out there that market a lot and go to the restaurant trade shows, set up booths, introduce themselves, when they're having the restaurant trade shows. And I know that's one way that I've heard of people marketing and different things. So maybe that's a thought. All right. Oh man, Jeffrey, I'm glad you caught that. That Lennox coil was like 8 inches away from the wall, man. I really don't think that's why the fan motor went bad, but I will tell you that I don't know if I mentioned it in the video or not, but we have a problem with that particular unit. That restaurant chain wants us to do a quarterly preventative maintenance, and we had to change just that particular location to bi-monthly, so every other month, because that condenser of how close it is to that wall. We have to keep on top of that because if you don't, it gets so impacted with dirt that it's almost impossible to clean. That thing's already really difficult to change. So, okay. Yeah. Your username is Joe65. I don't know what your name is, but I think you asked me a question in my video too, about the unit sitting in a housing that I was changing the blades anyways. Could I just unscrew the base and come straight out? You could have, the way that the motor was, the bracket that held the motor was mounted, you could have taken it out, I guess. You would have fought it though. So, and as far as just pulling the whole motor out, yeah, but you kind of needed to work your way around the blade. So it was just as easy just to pop the blade off. It didn't take me that long. But I see what you're saying. On some of them, yeah, there's some units where you can just pull the whole condenser fan motor assembly out and change it on the outside. Actually, some of the old Lennox units, you used to be able to do that. There used to be a shroud, and you could just take a couple screws out and pull the whole shroud out. But you can't do that on this one because of the way that the motor bracket mounts. So, Oscar, you asked me where my company is based out of. I'm based out of Riverside, California. So, thanks, Total Tech. Yeah, I was curious at the end to see how many people are in here, just so that I know. I tend to average right around 70 to 90 is right in there. So this seems to be right about my number of what people come on here. So, yeah, I can imagine prime time. Phoenix has probably got to be a nightmare with refrigeration. Yeah, it's got to be so hot out there. Case services, you asked me how much I pay my technicians. It just depends, dude. This general area, the going rate for technicians right now in SoCal is, depending on the experience level, starting at about 15 an hour for apprentices and then working their way up from there. Journeymen are pretty much from 35 an hour and up. So, it just depends, somewhere in between those ranges. I mean, if you're a technician that knows his shit and really, really is insanely good, I should say, you should be making 35 or more, just dependent, but it's really hard because everybody's experience is different. So, keep on going here. Can I split the coil to clean? No, that's not a coil that can be split. So it's a single row coil superior. So yeah, you can't split that thing. Yeah, that was great engineering. If you look at it, Jeffrey, if you watch the video, that unit is actually sitting on an adapter curb. And the restaurant itself is only about 7 or 8 years old. What happened was there was another restaurant there before. And even though they redid the whole building, for whatever reason, they used the same roof penetrations for the ACs. So they had to use an adapter curb to make the Lennox unit fit. I don't know what that was about. So they really just, put the new units, the new Lennox units, when they built that restaurant or when they retrofitted the restaurant, they just put them on, the existing penetrations through the roof. I don't know why they did that, for whatever reason. So if you look at all their units, and if you see any of the other units in the video, they're all sitting on adapter curbs. So, but those are newer Lennox units, and The restaurant's only 8 years old. So whatever. I don't know. They did a weird job installing that place. So yeah, definitely problems with the airflow. Hey, Rick, how you doing? Oh, thanks, Ted. Or thanks, G Martinez. Way to make me feel good about my viewers, huh? Ted gets 110. Wow. No, I'm just kidding, man. I know what you mean. Jeffrey, you know, hey, we'll see. Are you in my area? You okay, Ryan, you said you did a new Norlake evap motor assembly on a freezer, had to order the parts from Norlake, so no supply. Yeah, I've done some Norlake work. I've done some Norlake scientific work, and their stuff was really weird on the Norlake scientific. I haven't worked on anything new by Norlake lately. You know, the subways and different things. I don't do any of their work anymore, but the subways used to have Norlake like prepackaged units with quick connects on the line sets for the walk-ins and different things. But I haven't done any new work on the Norlakes lately. Like I said, the only stuff I did some when I used to do a hospital, they had some Norlake scientific units, but that was pretty much it. But they were kind of a pain in the butt. So, no compete. I'm doing great, man. Keep on going through here. Jeffrey, you're in Alaska. Right on, dude. Now, are you air conditioning refrigeration technician? How long have you been in Alaska? That's interesting. Fred, you're asking if I'm starting the R22 change. Nope, still using R22, man. Going to keep using it until the prices get insanely crazy, and then I'm going to give the customer options. But I'm not really changing the R22 yet. So, I mean, the prices have slowly been going up, but I don't really like any of the retrofits yet. So, we still have a lot of mineral oil charged units, and I haven't found a retrofit that works well with the mineral oil yet. So, keep going here. I'm sure. Oh, okay, yeah. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name. It's Yanni. Sorry, bro. I don't know if I'm butchering your name. Yeah, that's why I had that 4-foot ladder up there, because that unit was so tall. So, yep, the Linux units are getting a little complex with the Prodigy controllers, but I don't know. I still, in my opinion, the Linux units are still my favorite. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I don't know. I think that all the equipment manufacturers are getting that way, Steven. They're all getting to be a pain in the butt. Everybody's equipment's trash. Even Heatcraft, which used to be the best, you know, it's not very good equipment also. So no compete. Yeah, R22, man. My customers actually request that I still use R22, the chain restaurants, because they don't want to be putting the retrofits in there. They'd rather, you know, wait until they have to upgrade their equipment. So, Gary, why does your dog keep farting? I don't know. Can you see my dog? She's sitting back there. Look, I don't know if you can see. You probably can't see my dog, huh? She's gotten off her bed, and she wants to be as close to me as possible, so she's not laying on her bed. She kind of blends into the carpet, so it's probably hard to see her for you guys, but you could just barely see her down there. But yeah. I don't know why your dog keeps farting, bud. The package unit's installed backwards. Yeah, I guess. I mean, now if they installed that unit, or are you talking about my unit or yours, Ryan? Oh, do you, G Martinez? You know everything, huh? Fred, I actually like the older Linux units before the Prodigy controllers. I actually like those units better myself. Jeff, yeah. I don't know how you deal with those Aeon units, man. Yeah, I'm not a I don't know. I guess if I had to work on them every day, I'd be okay. But yeah, at least the Linux has a user interface. That's right. So that's cool. Prime time. So, yeah. As far as after 2020, I'll do whatever we have to do. But you have to remember, here in the US, R22 is still going to be available for the next 15 years, 10 to 15 years. Even though after 2020, they just have to stop making it. They're still good. They've got stockpiles of that stuff. So they're still just going to raise the price. They're just stockpiling that stuff right now. So yeah, we'll still be able to buy it. You'll be able to use the reclaimed refrigerant and all that different stuff. So I'm not worried about it. Like I said, I mean, if I have to use an alternative, I'll do so, but I'm going to make sure that it covers my ass and the customers know that I'm not going to be liable for anything that happens. I've used a few alternative refrigerants. Mainly I've used 427A, and probably used it 4 or 5 times, and 2 of the times it worked out horrible for me where I lost compressors. And long story short, they were train units, and I've since learned that they were it was a big train package unit with a 10-ton compressor. It was a 3D scroll, and I've since learned that the upper bearing on that compressor doesn't get its proper lubrication when you're using one of the alternative refrigerants, and that's why the compressor went bad, essentially, because the upper bearing wasn't getting lubed properly, because it wasn't being carried. The oil wasn't moving with the refrigerant, essentially. And that was the problem that I had. So, I've realized that a lot of the alternative refrigerant manufacturers actually say not to use theirs in the train systems with that 3D scroll now. So I've learned my lesson there, but that one was a big one because it was a 10-ton 3D scroll compressor. That was a very expensive job, and I had to essentially eat the compressor because that was my choice to go with the retrofit refrigerant. So that one sucked, and that one bit me, and that was really the turning point for the alternative refrigerants. So kind of stopped doing those. So Gary Black, you're working on the Heatcraft Beacon 2s. So I haven't worked on a beacon system. I am working on the QRC, the quick response controllers, which I know are the basically based off of the beacon system. They just don't have a controller, essentially. Everything's just controlled off the board. So I've seen a lot of paperwork and different things on the beacon systems. I'm not too worried about it, but I like this new technology. It's kind of fun. So yeah, Carrier for the simplicity. Yeah. They are simple and easy. And I don't really have much bad to say about Carrier. Their stuff's fine. It works. I mean, I probably sell more Carriers than I sell anything when I do sell a package unit. It's hard to sell a package unit these days, though, because because I work with chain restaurants, they buy all that stuff themselves for the most part. So yeah, Fred, the old L series, those were my favorite Linux units. But I honestly think that I like the old L series because I finally figured them all out. I think it took me a few years to figure out exactly how they worked, and it made a huge difference. So no, Rick, Train doesn't. And I actually have a document. If you guys don't know, Train is very interesting. So we have Train supply houses out here. I don't know if you guys have them too. Okay, we have a bunch. I'm sure you guys have Train supply houses. What am I thinking? But we have a bunch out here, and it's interesting because in the supply houses, they sell all the alternative refrigerants. They sell all the different brands. But then if you ask them, do you guys approve any alternative refrigerants on your units? They say no. So I was like intrigued by that. So I actually found a Train document, and it's really interesting. It was from about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And in the document, I wish I had it because I would do a screen share right now. But in the document, it specifically says Train does not or will not approve any alternative refrigerants for a system that's under warranty. But if the system's out of warranty, follow these guidelines to retrofit your system. So essentially they're saying they'll sell you that alternative refrigerant as long as they don't have to warranty it. But if they have to warranty it, you can't use the alternative refrigerant. So go figure on that one. That one's just because they want to sell you refrigerant. That was an interesting one. So Bristol, yeah, Superior Bristol closed, man. They're gone. I'm surprised someone doesn't buy them up. But yeah. Yeah, I work on the propane ones, Fred. I've got a video, 1 or 2 videos working on the R290 refrigerators. I haven't done it on a true one. I've done it on the Delfield ones. They're all the same. Prime time. You're giving Rick a hard time, man. Rick takes that to heart, dude. He doesn't know how to say, or he doesn't say roof like you say it. He says rough. Who cares? I know you're just messing with him, prime time, but it's funny. All right. Elliot, you asked how a tandem compressor works. Okay. It's easier to think of a tandem compressor as one compressor because they share a suction header and they share a discharge header. essentially they're just piped together. And a lot of times they'll stage one of the compressors down. It's kind of like running a system on an unloader way back in the day where it would shut off half the, half the compressor. That's all a tandem system is. Sometimes you'll see tandem systems where they run. So essentially there's two compressors. You have one discharge header and you have one suction header, and they pipe together and they pump together. And they have a usually an oil line that runs between the two, so it can share the oil from the bottom of the compressor, and it keeps the oil levels the same. One flaw you see on tandem compressors, depending on how they're piped, is it'll usually the suction gas or the oil that's coming back in the suction line will typically dump into one compressor instead of dumping into both. And that you'll see on the train units and sometimes on some of the Copeland units. So for that reason, they have a line that'll typically run from the oil sump from each compressor and connect the two, so that way the oil levels stay the same inside of them. I don't do a lot of work on tandem compressors, but I mean it's just another compressor. I wouldn't stress about it too much, especially if they're piped together. It's just think of it as one compressor, and then essentially they're just shutting down half of it. So, G, have a good night, man. We'll see you later. Keep going down through here, guys. Yeah, no compete. Most manufacturers do say alternative refrigerants will void the warranty, So what kind of beer am I drinking? I am drinking it's a local brew. It's called a Hanger 24, and it's orange wheat. It's just like a wheat ale. It's not like a Hefeweizen. It's a little bit different, but it's just a local brewery from Redlands, California here. So Hanger 24 orange wheat. Bristol and Tecumseh. Yeah, that's funny. Copeland bullied them. Yeah, pretty much everybody's switching to R290, Gary. So does anybody see, I'm not a cherry fan, Dark Dawes. I've never liked cherry, so I don't know if I would like a cherry wheat. But yeah, I'll try it. Okay, yeah. I guess the critical, this is similar to a shock top, kind of. I don't know. I think this is easier to drink. So I'm not going to get drunk, dude. Probably should have a disclaimer because I'm sure there's some kids on this channel watching. You need to be 21 or older to drink alcoholic beverages. So YouTube's probably going to demonetize my video now too. Pressed cold or bits or no, I have not. I have not primetime. So I have not worked on any of those. So I was hoping I could show you guys, but I can't. I'll release a review video on the FLIR 1 Pro. So I went ahead and bought the FLIR 1 Pro to test one specific function. I wanted to know if I could see the liquid level in a receiver when it is pumped down. And you cannot. I cannot. I tried it many, many different ways with the FLIR 1 Pro. I don't know if it's the camera's not good enough. Who knows? The FLIR 1 Pro is probably the most affordable without getting too cheap of a thermal imaging camera. I did a little bit of research, and I tried it, and it did not work for me. I tried a couple different things. Now, I will say when it did work is if I took a heat source and heated up the receiver while it was pumped down and then used the thermal imaging camera, I could see the liquid level perfect. I could see it at the 3/4 mark. So I'm going to release a video, and I verified that system was pumped down and it had 3/4 of a receiver full of liquid. Okay. Then I used the thermal imaging camera and I couldn't see the liquid level until I heated up the receiver. Then when I heated up the receiver while it was pumped down, I could see the liquid level. I tried another thing too, was while it was pumped down, after it cooled off, I took a water hose with cold water and I doused the receiver and got it nice and cool, the surface of it. And I wanted to see if you could tell where the liquid level was then too. And I still couldn't. And I even tried the settings in the camera where I changed all the different colors and different functions and all the stuff. I didn't read the instructions on the camera, but I just changed all the settings to see. And I have that in the video too. And nothing. And I tried it on multiple different systems. Unfortunately, in the video, I only showed it on one, but I tried it on a few other ones and I got the same results where I couldn't see the liquid level. of the refrigerant in there. So it really was no use to me, because if I had to heat up the receiver with the heat source, what's the difference than using my finger then? So I just went ahead and sent the camera back. I had bought it from Amazon. It cost like $4.99 or something like that, $499. So that's why. And I'm a big fan of using TruTech tools for all tool purchases, because I think they have great prices and they have a great staff over there. But this particular instance, I didn't use them because I had a really strong feeling that it wasn't going to work. And I didn't want to have to send that camera back to them. I kind of felt bad buying it like I did. So that's why I bought it from Amazon. So it's funny because we had a local trade show here, and I ran into one of the guys from TruTech Tools, and I told him that same story. And I just said, I buy them from you guys, but I said, I just didn't want to have to return something, because I know that they would have taken it back because they're good guys, but then they would have had to discounted it and try to sell it as a used item or something like that. So, but yeah, so it didn't work for me. So, keep on going down here, reading what you guys have here. Nope, Total Tech, I couldn't, man. I was bummed, dude. I really wanted to see the liquid level. I'm torn, because I'm gonna reach out to one of these really fancy thermal imaging companies. I doubt FLIR will send me something, but I know there's some new companies. I was turned on to one by TruTech Tools. There's a new company, like an up and coming company, that makes really expensive thermal imaging cameras. And I'm not joking with you that they start at like $5,000 and then they go up. The highest I saw was like 10 or 15 grand, which I would never buy something like that. But I'm just intrigued to know if one of those thermal cameras would be able to see the liquid level. So I'm tempted to reach out to one of them and see if they would send me like a demo unit that I can try, just to do that test. Maybe someday in the future, when the thermal imaging technology gets cheaper, then that will be more affordable. But there's no way that it's practical for a company. I mean, for me to give my technicians a $5,000 camera that they're going to drop or lose. That's not going to happen. It was hard for me to even justify a $400 camera for my phone. Like, that's a hard one too, because it's so easy to lose. And the one thing I didn't like about the FLIR One Pro, and you'll see in the video, I guess I didn't show you guys it attached to my phone, but because I have like I have an Otter case on my phone. I have a Samsung S9 Plus, and I have an Otter case. So it uses the headphone jack for the thermal camera, or no, it uses the USB-C jack for the thermal camera, but it won't fit. So I had to use an adapter. And when you put the adapter on the FLIR One Pro, it just was really like flimsy and cheesy on the phone. And I was afraid I was going to break it off. So that's another thing. I didn't really care about it either, but keep on going through the comments and catch back up to what I missed here, guys. So, oh, okay, Rick. Yeah, I saw you with that, and I was kind of curious. But like, even in the video that you showed recently, where I didn't see the liquid level. I know you weren't looking for you were just kind of showing it. I didn't really see it too well. So yeah, I don't know. But like I said, I'm gonna reach out to one of those fancy ones, just because I want to know. Someday when it gets cheaper, maybe they'll have them on there. So yeah, I've heard about the melting a candle critical think, but I mean, what's the difference with melting a candle and using your finger? I really don't understand that one. It's not like you're getting the receiver that hot. So I don't know why you can't just pass your hand on it. I mean, you feel the temperature. Maybe if your hands are so calloused up, you can't feel the heat. But the whole point is with the heat source, when you have it pumped down, you run your fingers from the bottom up, and the moment it gets burning hot, that's the liquid level. So yeah, but I've heard about the candle thing. I just don't know if that's very practical for me. So Fred, yeah, I did try the FLIR one on the condenser. I can't remember. I don't think I showed it in this video, but I did try it, and it was interesting. You know what was really interesting was when I looked at the microchannel condenser with the FLIR one. That was pretty cool. It wasn't very practical for me to justify the tool cost, but it was interesting to see, because a microchannel, it doesn't change state as it goes down the condenser like on a normal tube and fin. A microchannel instantly flashes off or whatever, so each row is its own circuit, I guess you can call it. So it was interesting to see that method there. I don't know if I filmed that or videoed that, but yeah, so that was interesting. Yeah, Dark, I could use a thermal imaging camera, to check an electrical hotspot for sure. And I'll be honest with you, I might have kept the FLIR One Pro if it wasn't so flimsy being connected to my phone. That was another thing that kind of turned me off on it, because I'll regularly use a infrared laser to check like electrical disconnect switches and look for hot spots on circuit breakers. So I could see where a thermal imaging camera would definitely help in a situation like that. I don't really recommend that FLIR One Pro though, unless you don't put a case on your phone, then it might work fine. Um, and what's interesting, in the very beginning of the video, I show, again, I haven't released this video yet, guys, but I will. In the very beginning of the video, I show the FLIR One Pro has like a little adjustment knob on it. And you can adjust the little USB-C dongle that plugs into the bottom of your phone. You can adjust it up and down to compensate for a big case, but it's not enough to compensate for an Otter case, which I think is kind of silly, because the Otter cases are the most rugged cases they have out there. They're just too big. So I would have thought FLIR would have figured that one out, but they didn't. So hello, I don't know how to say your name, but you're from Argentina. Thank you for watching. Oh, okay. Got you, Rick. I saw that. So you said it didn't show. Yeah. Cat makes that thermal imaging phone. Caterpillar does. But I compared that because of the cost of the phone. And then I was looking at the cost of the FLIR One Pro. I thought about just buying one of those phones and using it to film like my videos on or something like that. But the thermal imaging camera in that phone was less quality than the FLIR One Pro. If you looked at the specs, for the best bang for your buck was that FLIR One Pro, as far as the image quality and that the camera itself had, was the FLIR One Pro. That was, in my opinion, that was, looking at specs, that was the best one I could find. So got you, Brandon. Yeah. Yeah. If I didn't have to have it on my Otter case, yeah, it would definitely be better. So Primetime, you asked if I've ever installed a blast freezer. No, I've worked on a blast freezer, like not a giant one though. I've worked on, some fancy ones from Europe or something like that, installed in a giant kitchen that, they could push a rolling cart into. I've worked on those before. Essentially just a ginormous evaporator coil and a big condensing unit on it with a bunch of fans, and they're interesting to work on. They had like temperature probes that they, like 6 or 7 temperature probes that they inserted in all the different meats, so that way they could bring it down to temperature really quick. They're interesting to work on, but I've never worked on a giant blast freezer or anything. So I don't, yeah. Turn this down. Okay, pneumatic systems. No, I haven't really worked on too many pneumatic systems. I might have looked at one. Gary Black, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay. I should try a plate freezer. I don't know that I've worked on a plate freezer. Is that one that just has a flat plate heat exchanger? Oh yeah, that chiller, Jeff. That was awesome, huh? That AK worked on. I don't want to waste your guys' time. I'll keep chatting if you guys want to chat, but we're getting on an hour here, so I don't want to kill you guys on time. I really don't have too much more content, but I'll be glad to answer more questions if you guys have them, or if you guys just want to keep talking. I'm good with it, so just let me know how you guys want to roll with this. I'm sorry, I can't understand a lot of what you're saying. Frigo Azul, but I see Testo Smart Probe, so I'm assuming if you, I can kind of take a little bit of that, and it says, do I like the Testo Smart Probes? I'm not a fan of the Testo Smart Probes, but I've never been a Testo fan in general. I don't know if I'm completely fair to give an honest review on the Testo Smart Probes, but yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I've tried them a few times, and yeah, they're just not really my favorite. So, but again, I know a lot of people that really like them. So I don't, don't take me just for my word. I'm more of a fan of the field piece. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought, Fred. I just did a Google Translate too, and that's exactly what it says. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Testos. But again, I don't think I've given them a fair review. I don't think that I've tried them enough, so we'll see. I heard some interesting stuff in the HVAC Shop Talk podcast last night, and I saw some comments and different things that Testo is changing some things and they're doing some new stuff. So I'd be intrigued. I do know that Testo makes some great hydrometers or hygrometers or however you want to say that for their smart probe set. I know that those are amazing. I if I understand right though, the smart probe refrigerant pressure sensors or whatever are really cheap, and so again, it's kind of hard for me. I can't really give you an honest review on those. So I imagine I probably need to order a set and try them out. But I'm going to be honest with you too. One of the things that really turned me off about the Testo app is that it wasn't made for the United States. The app itself was made for another country, and you can tell so in the way, even though they let you change the units of measure and different things, you can tell it's just geared for the European countries and systems that use the metric system. And that kind of frustrates me because, I'd rather have an app that's set up for me. That way I can understand it. But I guess that's not fair to say, because there's a lot of other people that use them around the world and probably love them. So, hey, Gregory, how you doing, man? Thanks. Appreciate that. Turbo Air Refrigeration in Trenton. I really like Trenton units. It's been a while, but I've installed some of their condensing units and evaporators. And one of the cool features that I really like, I don't know if they still do it on their walk-in evaporators for the Trenton units, is they're hinged. And I dug that, dude. Even on their, their low profile ones that mount on the back wall or whatever. That was awesome, I thought, because if you put a union on the drain line, you can just hinge down the drain pan to clean it. I thought that was really cool. So, hey, Zach. Yeah, that's why I don't really want to bash Testo, but I'm just not a huge fan. So, to each their own. Some people really like the Testo ones. They're just not really my favorite. Thank you, Total Tech. That was really cool of you. Yeah, just not really. Indiana Jones or Back to the Future. My friend Gary, I have to say Indiana Jones, dude. The Indiana Jones series. I mean, I love Back to the Future too. They're both great, great shows, but Indiana Jones, man. I wanted to be Indy. I wanted to, yeah, for sure. So, are Bally units worth shit or are they cheap? Do Bally even make units anymore? I think Bally's the same thing as Trenton, isn't it? Oh, no, Bally. Yeah, aren't they the same as Trenton now? I think they're owned by the same company. And I believe Keep Right is the same as Trenton too. I believe they're all under the same thing. I could be wrong. I don't even think Bally, though. Are they making anything under the Bally name anymore? I know they used to. They used to be. Ryan, you asked thermostats that come on the Trenton are junk. You might as well put on a Ronco Digital. I love Ronco Digitals, man. I know some people don't like them. Ronco Digitals are my favorite just because they're simple. The one thing I wish that you could do with a Ronco Digital, I'll tell you too, my favorite Ronco Digital is the ETC 141,000 because that one is the NEMA 4. It has the tabs on the outside of the controller for the screws, so you can mount it to a walk-in. So basically, I pre-wire them outside of the walk-in, run a SJ cord out the bottom and leave it long. Then you could screw them to the wall. You don't have to open it up again, and then you just wire it at the unit. But the one thing I wish that the Ronco controls would do is put a temperature calibration in the setup, similar to how the A419 controller has it. Because on the Penn A419 controller or Johnson controls or whatever, you can calibrate the sensor. So if the sensor's reading 3 degrees off, you can offset that. So that way the controller reads what you want it to read. So I do like that because I noticed that's a trend on some of the Ronco controls that after time, they start to read 2 to 3 degrees off. And if you mount them, that's why I typically don't mount them where the customers can see them, because if you mount them where the customers can see them, then they start calling you for nuisance calls. So, Paul, you asked why I prefer DeWalt tools. Because I'm invested so much in them that I don't want to make the change. I don't know. I've just always been a DeWalt guy. But I have some Rigid tools, and the Rigid one works good for like a cheaper brand, but even Rigid isn't very cheap anymore either. That's like the Home Depot brand. Yeah, I don't know. I like some of the stuff Milwaukee's doing. They keep coming out with some really cool stuff. So, but I don't know, man. I'm just kind of afraid to change because I'm in so deep with the DeWalt already. So I just don't really want to have 50,000 different tools. I think that's kind of what they purposely get you in that point too, because I'm in so deep that I don't want to make the change because then my other tools won't work with the new tools, batteries, that kind of stuff. So, um, yeah, that access door is awesome. And I like the access doors, on the condensing units too, Don, because they typically have for, some of the bigger ones have the access doors with the one single screw that screw it to unlock and you pull the door open with hinges. I love that. I think that's a really cool feature. Okay, Gary. Yeah, so I think, okay, so Crack is Keep Right, but I believe they're the same as Trenton too. Prime time. Am I wrong? I thought they were, dude. I thought they were the same as Trenton too. But yeah, who knows? Woody, I saved your ass? Right on. I'm glad I did, but what could I tell you that you could do on a supermarket system? I'm assuming that's what you were working on? Working for Source? I don't know that I know anything about that stuff, but hey, if I helped you, great, man. I appreciate you reaching out and saying that. That's cool. Guys, I don't, I've said it before. I don't pretend to know everything. I just try to share the little bit of knowledge that I have, guys. So I know I'm sure you guys see it, but I'm a pretty particular in the way that I do things and the way that I systematically approach things. I would say, that I don't have a lot of knowledge per se, but I have a way of approaching things and diagnosing things that helps me to get to the root cause, even if I don't know what's going on. I'd say that's you know, what I have, but I don't think I have that much knowledge. So, um, JP Lynn, you asked, what is the best way charging a refrigerator set manufactured? I honestly don't understand your question, sir. I'm assuming that there's a language barrier there because of the way that you wrote it. And no offense, I just don't understand what you're asking me there, bud. If I think that you're asking me what's the best way to charge a manufactured unit, and I would assume you charge by the nameplate and weigh the charge in. But again, I need some context to your question there, bud. So Ryan, so I'm a Black and Decker Pecker Wrecker, huh? Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's what I am, right? Yep, they're all the same now, dude. And don't they own Linux Tools and they own Rubbermaid and they own a bunch of other stuff too. They're one giant conglomerate now, right? You guys are gonna like give me a complex and I'm gonna have to go out and buy a bunch of Milwaukee stuff tomorrow or something. Yeah, prime time. Trenton has United Refrigeration. I do know that. But I swear that they're still the same, dude. B Thome 957. I don't know how to pronounce your handle there, but I pronounce it Bone. So I don't know if that's wrong. That's the way I've always heard it pronounced as Bone. So no, I Total Tech. I absolutely know that Trenton is not Heatcraft. I know that for a fact. Heatcraft is actually bought and owned by Lennox International now, the company that makes the air conditioners. They got absorbed into that. So anal is okay. Embrace it. I don't know how to take that comment there, Zach. I'm just joking. I know what you mean. Um, Raymond, right on, dude. I'm glad I could help you, bud. Dark Dawes, you asked if I learned in HVAC school. So I did a mixture. I started working for my dad, and my dad and I still work together. We run the company together now. But I started working for him when I was a little kid. So he was my mentor, since I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I would come work for him, or work with him. Essentially, when my parents were split up or divorced, so when my mom needed my dad to pick me up or whatever, my dad would pick me up and I'd go to work with him until he got home, or on the way home. And I remember doing that and listening and learning a lot. But I officially started in 2002. That's when I officially came to work for him. And I went to school I went to night school. Actually, never finished night school. I think I'm only like 2 classes short of like a certificate or something. I think I only need I don't even know if my credits are still good because they're all the way from 2003. So I don't know if that stuff expires, but I think I only needed a welding class and a math class to get a certificate. I wish I would have done it then because it's a pain in the butt now to go back to school. But so yeah, I went to night school, you know, 2 classes a week or whatever while I was working after work. And then I just worked with my dad and then my cousin who was working with us at the same time too. And both of them taught me a lot and I just learned from them. And then, you know, back then it was, a little more forgiving. So, you know, we were able to make mistakes, even though it probably wasn't the greatest thing. And I learned from a lot of those mistakes. I'd say a lot of the tips and tricks that I share, most of them are all just mistakes that I've made and I've learned my lesson, you know? So, I definitely think that things are a little bit different now though. And it's harder to make mistakes. The equipment is a lot less forgiving, than it was back then. Cause I was still working on a lot of equipment from the 80s and 90s and 2000. So, you know, that equipment was all, you know, 8 to 10 SEER air conditioning equipment and the refrigeration systems, you know, we used to work on a lot of old Hobart reach-ins and different things. They were real easy to work on. So Elliot Vega, you asked me, how do I set a cut in and cut out for a walk-in freezer? Well, there's a couple things you need to take into consideration there. Number one, you need to know the ambient of your condensing unit. Is it remoted? Is it on the roof? Depending on where you're at, is it going to get to -10 outside? All those things affect the way that the system turns on and off and how the pressures react in the system. You also need to know, you know, whether or not it's a pump down system. Does it have a liquid line solenoid valve? So what happens is if it's a pump down system, when the liquid line solenoid valve opens, all that refrigerant is going to start running through the lines and it's going to be driven downstairs. Well, if it's really cold outside, the temperature doesn't bring the pressure in the system up enough to push it downstairs. So that all affects the way that you set your pressure controls. So just keep that in mind. But in a nutshell, if it's a pump down system, I'm going to set the cutout usually around 5 to 15 PSI. And I'm going to set the cut in usually around 25 to 45 PSI, depending on what refrigerant it is. But you also need to understand the principles of how the refrigerant is going to change the pressure based on the temperature, essentially, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, you know, I will try to make a video on that because I can try to explain it a little bit better than just right off the cuff of my talking about this. See you later, Gary. Thanks for coming in, man. Refrigeration, definitely, Paul. I like working on refrigeration a lot more. So, keep going down here. Dark Dawes, thanks, bud. Take a refresher course. I'd love to go back to school, Gary. You know, I'd have no problem with it. It's just getting the time. So, oh, okay, I got you, Ryan. Oh, I'll have to do some research on that. I didn't think Trenton, dude. I swear that Trenton is part of Bally, but or, I'm sorry, part of Keep Right. Trenton and Keep Right. I'm looking it up right now. Yeah, because the Trenton units look awfully familiar. The Trenton condensing units look awfully familiar to the Keep Right and the Crack condensing units. But I'll do some research on that and see. No, I haven't worked on any VRF systems yet. So Total Tech, yeah, 5 PSI difference. That's why I gave like an average there yet. Usually I'm going to have 15 to 25-degree difference between the cut in and cut out, but it all depends. I was just giving some rough numbers. That all depends on, you know, the outdoor ambient. You know, if you're where Ryan is, Ryan, you're in Colorado, right? So you guys get some cold weather up there. So we have to be careful trying to set our cut ins too high because it's going to be hard to get that head pressure. I mean, the refrigerant pressure to come up to turn on that control. So, you know, I imagine that they have, they set their cut ins a little bit lower because, you know, out here in SoCal, the coldest we get at nighttime is in the 40s. Extreme lows is in the 30s, but that's insane. We don't usually hit 30. So we're usually in the mid 40s. And, you know, it's different than when you go to the really cold climates. So, all right. Thanks, Superior. Yeah, 5 and 25. All right, guys. You know, it's been about an hour and 10 minutes. So I think I'm going to close this up unless anybody else has any more questions. Give it another second here. I think it's time. Mike, you worked in a restaurant today for the first time. Yeah, depending on what restaurant you worked in or where it was, some of them can be pretty nasty, dude. Most of the restaurants that I work in, they're not too bad. What's interesting, though, is when people see my videos and they say, thanks, Tommy. Thanks, guys. And they say that the restaurants look dirty. If you guys think the restaurants are dirty that I work in, you should see some other ones. Some other restaurant guys, I'm sure Ryan sees some of it too. Some of the other restaurant guys see some nasty stuff. I don't work in a lot of nasty places. So, how often do I recommend flushing out a water coil system ice machine with a heat exchange? Oh, so you're saying a water cooled? Yeah, you need to be doing preventative maintenance on that system, and it's unfortunately it's really difficult to flush those systems. So what I would suggest you do on an ice machine is you probably need to rig up a pump, and you get a small circulating pump, and you need to rig up some fittings and fill that thing with some red lime and circulate that through. That would be your best bet. If you do that on a regular basis or have your, you know, but you need to do it correctly. I'm not just saying to go buy any circulating pump because you buy one that's too big and you try to circulate that through that. You need to buy a small circulating pump because that's a very, very small loop there to be pushing all that water with the red line through. So you'll burn up the system, the pump really quick if you try to use a big giant one. Yeah, Ryan, working in some of the Chinese restaurants. Yeah. Yeah. I don't do any Chinese restaurant work. So yeah, Ruby Tuesdays. I mean, a lot of those places, you know, hey, Corey, how you doing? A lot of those places can be pretty nasty. So, haha. Yeah, I don't understand putting some of those Aeon units on some of these small little fast food places because those places aren't maintaining that stuff. So, Steven, you noticed that Manitowoc's using 410. Yeah, so they started using 410 on their knockoff units. Someone help me out. What is the knockoff unit called? Cool Air. So that was Manitowoc's like answer to all the import ice machines that were coming in. They made a knockoff called Cool Air. And the funny thing is that the Cool Air unit was just a bunch of old technology that Manitowoc used to use. They went back to using water level sensors and floats and different things. I haven't worked on one, but I've read a lot about them and watched and talked to the training guys about them and stuff. But so they started using 410A in the Cool Air units. And then my understanding is that they're changing some of the new Manitowoc Indigo Next ones. They're using 410. So I haven't seen any of the new Indigo Next units, but I don't think they're using 410 on the Quiet Cube models, which is what I pretty much run into at all my restaurants. And if you don't know, the Quiet Cube models are the ones that have the compressor and accumulator on the roof, but the receiver and the expansion valves and the evaporators are downstairs. And they call them Quiet Cube because they put the compressor on the roof essentially. And so what you have, you know, you just run a liquid line and a suction line going downstairs, just like you would a normal remote refrigeration system. So, but yeah, so I don't think they're using the 410 on the Quiet Cube ones, but I know they're using the 410 on the self-contained ones. So that's interesting. Yeah. Now, Ryan, is it a Quiet Cube or is it a traditional remote? Thanks, Gregory. You have a nice have a nice holiday. That's right. Thanksgiving's coming up this week for us in the US. So refrigeration tech. We're kind of winding down. We were talking about Glycol today. We were talking just kind of answering everybody's questions. I was kind of going over the videos that I uploaded this last week, which was a Chi-Rack Glycol unit and a Lennox unit today. And then I was just kind of answering everybody's questions. So of course, practice the best. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, Don. The accumulators was the number one problem. Okay, so Ryan, it was a traditional, but next to a flaker, which is a Quiet Cube. So do you know, can you confirm, are they using 410 on the Quiet Cubes too, Ryan? Or do you not know that? All right, Jose. Thanks a lot, man. We'll see you later. Have a good holiday, Thanksgiving, whatever. Happy holidays. I don't want to offend anybody. Bullshit. Merry Christmas, all that stuff. Okay, got you. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So, Alex, that's an interesting one, man. You know, I'd suggest you do some investigating, dude. If you got a no cooling call and you can't find anything wrong, you need to start asking questions. Make sure you talk to the person that actually witnessed the problem. You know, that's where the investigating comes in. listening to things, listening to the way customers tell you what happened, asking, you know, depending on where you're at, asking the staff or the cooks or the other people that were there what happened too. That's a hard one, man. You just got to kind of know how to investigate. So, never worked on cooling towers, Paul. I don't do anything industrial, none of the big chiller system cooling towers. You know, just not something that I ever got into. So, right on. All right, guys. We're going to wrap this up. So, it's been an hour and 15. So, thanks a lot for coming in, guys. I didn't really have a whole lot of content this time, so hopefully you guys enjoyed what we had. And we will, like everybody else has already said, have a happy Thanksgiving for the people here in the U.S., happy holidays for the people not. And we will talk to y'all later, okay? All right, thanks a lot, guys.